Side of the Dome, and I'm here to talk to you for the next half an hour or so about some Blue Jays baseball. And while I go through my usual opening spiel talking about this show and the other shows that Jays from the Couch offers, I wanted to share a small anecdote that I saw online that I thought was pretty funny. So imagine at some point in the future, YouTube, Facebook, and Twitter were to merge and become one entity. And if that happened, what would their new name be? What if they settled on You Twitface? Anyway, so if you're trying to remember where do I find Sunny Side of the Dome, you can think of You Twitface. Currently still the three separate entities. So Sunny Side of the Dome streams live Thursdays at 6 p.m. Through Jays from the Couch. So we're available on Jays from the Couch's YouTube channel, as well as a Facebook page and Twitter page. And if you do happen to be watching live and you have any comments or questions, by all means do send them in. I love that fan interaction. I think it makes the show just that much better, hearing everybody's thoughts, comments. I love all that. And if you're busy and you can't catch the live show, then no problem. When you're ready for us, we're ready for you. You can always catch the archived recording on any one of those aforementioned medium. And if you like the content here at Sunny Side of the Dome, there's lots more where that came from. There's Jays from the Couch's main podcast, the radio podcast, which is on Mondays at 6 p.m. That's hosted by Sean Doyle, Jays from the Couch's founder, head honcho, boss in charge, and he's always got lots of good things on the Monday night podcast. So there's him. There's pretty much always someone else on there with him. So other Jays from the Couch writers. We were on this past Monday doing some role playing. Sean was playing the role of Ross Atkins, and Steve Feck and I were taking turns playing reporters, asking Ross some questions. So that was a lot of fun. If you didn't tune into that, be sure and check that out. And if you miss the live show on Monday nights, that is also available as a radio podcast if you want to download and listen to it at your convenience. So anywhere you get a quality podcast, Apple, Google, Stitcher, Spotify, it's available pretty much anywhere. And the other YouTube show that is on Tuesdays, also at 6 p.m., is the Unfeck Circle, hosted by my crazy colleague, the Feckless Wonder, Steve Feck. And really hope that you've been checking that out. If you haven't, you really should. Steve is never boring. That's the one thing I can definitely say about him. He's smart, he's funny, he's knowledgeable. When I listen to Steve, I very often learn things that I didn't know before because he's been around the game for such a long time, and he'll make you think. And I'll be honest, my outlook is quite different from his a lot of the time. He and I tend to disagree somewhat famously at times, but that's okay. Adults can agree to disagree. So yeah, definitely check that out, the Unfeck Circle, Tuesdays at 6 p.m. if you haven't been doing so. How's it going, Blue Jays fans? Happy Thursday evening, or as happy as we can be when the rubber match that we were looking forward to at 7 p.m. today, Jays versus Orioles, has been postponed due to rain, but we'll get back to that. So yeah, it's been a while. It's been a couple of weeks. We didn't do a show last week because of the July 1st Canada Day holiday, and yeah, it's definitely been an interesting couple of weeks. Lots of things going on, a lot more good than bad, honestly. And get to that in a bit. Before then, 2 weeks worth of housekeeping, and I do want to try to summarize it the best I can. The team definitely looks different than it did a couple of weeks ago. Some changes. So yeah, let's do that, and then I'll get on with the main point of the show. So one interesting thing, and I double check the transactions for a while there, knock on wood, 100 times, it seemed like there was a revolving door to the injured list, particularly pitchers. I mean, who of the relief pitchers hasn't spent time on the injured list? And some of them are still there, unfortunately. So over the last 2 weeks, only one Toronto Blue Jay that was not previously on the injured list prior to that period of time has been placed on the injured list. Tyler Chatwood has been put on the 10-day IL with neck soreness or being a pain in the neck, or maybe a combination of both, depending on how you look at it. I mean, it's really unfortunate. And in all seriousness, Chatwood, he's had, I think the last time I checked, 29 or 30 outings for the Blue Jays out of the bullpen. And the thing that a lot of people forget, I think, is that Chatwood was very good for the Jays much more often than he was bad. The problem is that when he's bad, he's really bad. And part of that is exasperated by the 3-batter rule. That's when someone comes in relief, they have to face a minimum of 3 batters unless they finish an inning. And if that's the case, then they can be replaced before a 3rd batter. But yeah, Chatwood, unfortunately, when he's not doing well, he can't seem to find the strike zone no matter what. And we've seen him a few times when he's being taken out of the game. I mean, he'll argue with Charlie Montoyo right there on the mound. For anybody who's watching, anybody who's in the ballpark or watching on TV can see. And I mean, express your opinion, that's one thing, but don't show up your manager in front of the whole world like that. Do it in the privacy of the clubhouse after the fact. That maybe you don't think that you needed to be taken out of the game, but look at the scoreboard. When you were taken out, it's because you weren't pitching well. If you were pitching well, you would have been left in. So whatever happens, Tyler Chatwood, all the best. And assuming that we see him back playing active in a Blue Jays uniform at some point, I hope he's really back to being the good Tyler Chatwood. I don't know what's going on, whether it's a post-sticky stuff situation or who knows what. But anyway, I guess we'll find out. Excuse me just a moment. All right, so that was the only new player put on the injured list. Alec Manoa, he had been suspended, and then he was appealing the suspension. So looks like he and the Blue Jays did something a little bit strategic. And if you know anything about Major League Baseball, all the teams do it. So he appealed, he made a start, and then immediately after the start, he dropped the appeal. So he served the 5-game suspension, and he's already back to being active. He pitched on July the 2nd, I believe it is. Pitched well. He's continued to pitch well. He's definitely one of the positive stories for the Blue Jays so far this season. So that's great to see. Some guys have gone on rehab assignments. Tommy Malone, I almost forgot that he was with the team. He's actually begun a rehab assignment, as well as Danny Jansen, Alejandro Kirk, and Rafael Delis. And actually, Danny Jansen, I guess they pronounced him back to full health because he was actually called back up, as was Delis, and he's had a couple of outings, and unfortunately, the first one wasn't so good. Delis is another one. At times, he can be very effective, but when he's not good at, like, which Delis is it, Jekyll or Hyde, and you just don't really know which one you're going to get until he goes out there and pitches. So, yeah, there was that. Jonathan Davis also was called back up. He had been optioned. He was called back up to the team, and he's still around. And I mean, hopefully he'll be around for a while, because I think he's a good guy, and he definitely brings some positive things to the team. He's a very good pinch runner. He's a very good defender. He's fast. He's a great late inning defensive replacement when the Jays have a lead. So definitely adds some value that way. A couple of guys have been up and down. Anthony Castro was optioned back down, and then he was called back up. So he was down, and now he's back with the team. Nick Algayer actually went the other way. He was called back up, finally made his major league debut, pitched an inning, didn't give up any runs, so that's great. And then they needed a roster spot, so back down he went. But there's a name to keep in mind for the future anyway. So far, so good in a very small sample size. So optioned as well as Algayer, so Joel Payamps, Patrick Murphy. Unfortunate Murphy. I've followed his minor league career for a few years. I like his talent. He's had a few outings with the Blue Jays, and a couple of them really weren't that good. And they needed a fresh arm and a roster spot. So he's back in the minors for now. I'm really hoping that he can find an adjustment, come back up at some point, and help the team. But we'll see how that goes. When Danny Jansen was optioned, kind of made Riley Adams redundant. Unfortunate start to his major league career, and hoping that there can be better things in store for Riley Adams doesn't necessarily mean that what we've seen of him in MLB is the best that he's capable of, because players make adjustments all the time. So hopefully for his sake, he can be one of those and do better in the future. And then Trent Thornton was optioned. A little bit of a surprise that then you look at his results. He really was one of the better relief pitchers early on in the season. Back when pretty much the whole bullpen was lights out, he was definitely one of the positive contributors. And if you're someone that watches this show on a regular basis, you may recall that a while back I was actually advocating for them to put him into the rotation just because he'd done so well, and he's been a starter in the past. I don't know what's going on with him, whether it's fatigue or who the heck knows. But lately he just really hasn't done well. And again, the whole crackdown, the mid-season crackdown on the sticky stuff, and I just hate to think about anybody cheating. On the other hand, people on the inside, people who know a lot more than I do, were saying that it's really a high percentage of pitchers that use it. Like it's somewhere close to 100%, maybe not quite 100%, but pretty close. Like, yikes. That's disheartening to think about. For me anyway. But yeah, when someone was doing well before and in the last month or so they've struggled, you wonder if that might be at least a part of it. So hopefully not. Hopefully it's something that Thornton can go down to the minors in AAA and rebound and come back and be good again. But we'll see. That is remaining to be seen. So the other transactions, Thomas Hatch, I guess there's a time limit, or once you're on a rehab assignment, that once you've been pronounced healthy, you have to either be DFA'd or added back to the 40-man roster. Well, they're not DFAing Thomas Hatch, not anytime soon with the talent and the promise that he has. So they needed a spot on the 40-man roster. Now, don't panic if you haven't heard what happened. Ryan Burucky was actually transferred from the 10-day IL to the 60-day IL, but it seems like more of a formality than anything. He went on the 10-day IL in the middle of May, so really he is not quite out. He is not quite eligible yet to be activated. But since that he was put on the 60-day IL retroactively, he's actually eligible in another few days, I believe, to be activated. And he just started a rehab assignment and apparently pitched pretty well in the one outing so far. So it really doesn't sound like there's any sort of a setback with Ryan Burucky. In fact, I wouldn't be too surprised if we see him not that long after the All-Star break, see how that goes. Speaking of setbacks, however, unfortunately, there was some unfortunate news. Julian Merriweather, in his attempt to come back, has suffered some sort of a setback. So Unfortunate, because there is no question whatsoever about Merriweather's talent. He has special talent when he's healthy, and that's the key. More and more, the more time he spends on the IL, the more injuries you hear, things pile up, and then he tries to work his way back and runs into setbacks. The more I I'm really wondering how much of a career he can have, and I don't want to feel that way. Like, please, Julian Merriweather, come back and prove me very wrong. But I don't know. Anyway, again, we'll see how that goes. So, on to the heart of tonight's order, some very positive things to talk about. And transaction wise, two of the bigger things were the trades that the Blue Jays made. But I wanted to save that, as I said, for the heart of the order, because I think it's reasonably big news for the Jays. And I mean, we've been saying all along, I've been saying all along, that the bullpen that they have, the problems that they've had with the relief pitching, that they weren't just going to stand pat and they weren't just going to leave things as they were. That they've got too much of a good team with a positive run differential. They've invested all kinds of money into this team with Hyun-Jin Ryu for $80 million, George Springer for $150 million, plus various other guys, money spent on veterans, quality veterans on one-year deals, whether obtained as a one-year free agent signing or a trade. They've just put too much into it. They're not going to throw in the towel when they're close and when there's something that can be done to fix it. So, trade number one with the Miami Marlins. Well, welcome to the Blue Jays relief pitcher Adam Cimber, and outfielder, left-handed hitting outfielder Corey Dickerson. Now that's a little bit of an interesting move, acquiring Dickerson for the simple reason that he's already on the injured list, and they don't really have, from what I've heard, a firm timeline for him to come back. So who knows? I mean, did they see him not long after the All-Star break? Is it closer to the trade deadline of July 30th? And apparently, after the trade was formalized and announced, Marlins manager Don Mattingly made a public comment that he wasn't surprised that Dickerson went to the Jays, because apparently they acquired and inquired significantly about Dickerson this past offseason. But needless to say, that didn't happen. So, yeah, it'll be interesting to see how Dickerson fits into the plans, if at all. They do want another left-handed hitter. He's an outfielder, and they've got like 5 of those, counting Jonathan Davis, whose best role might be as a bench player, but regardless, the other 4 are all right-hand hitting. George Springer, Teoscar Hernandez, Lourdes Gurriel Jr., Randall Grichuk. So, I mean, this adds a little bit of a different look to the mix, if and when he can come back and play. Dickerson's eligible for free agency at the end of this season. So the other thing, I mean, some people are saying, well, I guess an outfielder is getting traded. I don't know that that's necessarily the case. You want to keep someone that can walk, who's eligible to leave at the end of this season, and give up someone where there's team control. I don't know that they really do that, but we'll see how it goes. But yes, Adam Cimber, a good relief pitcher, having a solid season. Pretty sure that he was the main target for the Blue Jays. And since he's come over, he's been activated, gotten into 3 games. Knock on wood, has not given up a run yet. So very, very welcome addition. And yeah, keep doing what you're doing. Absolutely. To get the 2 of them, the Blue Jays said goodbye to Joe Panik. So Panik, all the best to you. I mean, he did the best that he could when he was in a Blue Jay uniform. I don't doubt that for a second. He's a veteran. I mean, he's 30-something, so in terms of his MLB career, probably on the downside there. But yeah, I mean, he's more of a backup utility infielder at this point, and with the emergence of Santiago Espinal and how well that he's done, even though it's a fairly small sample size, certainly his defense, if he's playing third base, Santiago Espinal can pick it. and we've seen that, and it made Joe Panic expendable. So all the best to you with Miami. As well, pitching prospect Andrew McInvale, all the best to you. Again, I'll be very honest, not someone I had ever really even heard of, and I'm reasonably familiar with the Blue Jays farm system, certainly not as much as our in-house expert, Ryan Mueller, or anything. He knows the farm system inside out and backwards. That's his specialty, his passion. He writes frequent minor league report updates, so if you haven't been reading those, you definitely should. But anyway, yeah. So bottom line, they got a relief pitcher, which they really need, who's been doing well, and they didn't have to give up all that much, and they did so reasonably early back in June, before we were saying that the majority of trades happen typically in July. And they weren't done, and I don't think that they are done. But yes, they made another trade a couple of days ago. So interesting, they made a trade with another contending team, the Milwaukee Brewers, who've won a whole ton of games in a row, and I believe they're now in first place in their division in the NL Central. They needed a first baseman, and the Blue Jays had Rowdy Tellez playing at AAA, and I mean, kind of feel bad for Tellez in a way that he couldn't seem to find consistency at the major league level, at least not with the Toronto Blue Jays. And he was up and down so many times. And the Jays just gave him so many chances to really find that consistency with the bat, and it never really happened beyond a couple of really good weeks last year, before which he unfortunately got injured. So now he's got a fresh start with the Brewers, and all the best to Rowdy. In exchange, the Blue Jays picked up two pitchers, so another relief pitcher, Trevor Richards, also having a good season, made his Blue Jays debut, pitched well, a scoreless inning. So once again, between him and Adam Simber, guys, just keep doing what you're doing, and let's not burn these guys out. And we really need to rebuild an effective bullpen. I think these are two very good steps. I don't think they're the final steps. I think there's more moves that are going to be made between now and the deadline. So we'll see how that goes. Jays also picked up a pitching prospect, Bowden Francis. Now he's currently pitching, or has been pitching, at AAA. He's not yet on the 40-man roster. He's actually Rule 5 eligible this offseason. So whether the Blue Jays hang on to him, whether they deem his talent worthy of a 40-man roster spot, protect him from the draft, or who knows, maybe they'll end up flipping him for other more immediate help. We'll see how that goes. But yeah, all good, I think. Very interesting. They added a couple of relief pitchers. And no disrespect to the players going the other way, but they didn't really give up all that much to get them. And good job, Ross Atkins. And as I said, I really think there's more to come. Excuse me just a moment. So yeah, rain out today. Unfortunate, or as they said in the movie Bull Durham, sometimes you win, sometimes you lose, sometimes it rains. Well, today it's raining in Baltimore, or they're predicting rain. I don't know which. I'm not there. I haven't really seen, but it looks bad enough that they made the decision to postpone the game. So that'll be part of a doubleheader going into September 11th of this year. Well, believe it or not, I actually see this as an opportunity for the Blue Jays to win that much more. And I'll tell you why. There's a couple of things. One, so Alec Manoa, he of the sub-3 ERA, fantastic rookie season so far, knock on wood. He was scheduled to pitch today. So I'm assuming what the Blue Jays do is push everybody back a day. So Manoa, I'm assuming, is going to pitch tomorrow in Tampa Bay versus the Rays. And then you've got your two other best starting pitchers of late. So Russ Stripling, with the turnaround that he's made, excuse me, he's been absolutely great for several starts. So he pitches, and then Robbie Ray, I believe, would close out the last start before the All-Star break this coming Sunday. And that means that Steven Matz, who unfortunately is for the last couple of months actually has really struggled. He's been a work in progress more often than not, so they can give him a break, and they don't even have to use him until after the All-Star break. I'm hoping that's what they're going to do, and that should, at least on paper, give the Blue Jays that much better of an opportunity to beat another contending team, the Tampa Bay Rays. Then as far as the makeup game versus Baltimore in September, well, what happens at that point? I mean, the Blue Jays in the standings, in the games that they've played, that they've already shown they're certainly a better team than the last place Baltimore Orioles. Well, by September, the Blue Jays will have added more. And the Orioles, if they have any veterans on expiring contracts, or anybody who's worth selling to get younger and get prospects and help them to rebuild, they will have done that. So on paper, there's that much more of a chance for the Blue Jays to beat the Orioles in September. So I'm seeing it as positives. Big surprise, right? Yeah, I'm seeing good things for our team. Since the last show, and we were talking a while ago about the schedule getting that much easier. And since that day, which was June the 24th, it's happened. It's played out. They have 11 wins. They do have 6 losses, unfortunately, but 11-6, that's close to winning 2 out of every 3. Had they played today and had they won today, it literally would have been 2 out of every 3. It's baseball. You're not going to win every game, but I'll take 2 out of 3 anytime. And it's really helped them. It's helped them move up in the standings, pass a number of teams in the wild card standings. I think things are just going to continue to get better for them this season and beyond. And the All-Star game, it's coming. The voting happened, 2 rounds of voting, something new this year. And it's been great. Our Blue Jays position players have been recognized for what they're doing on the field. Vladimir Guerrero Jr., absolutely. He's been the best hitter in all of baseball from day one of this season, and he very much deserved to be the starting first baseman for the American League, and he is. He got the most votes of anybody. Marcus Semien, he's been a fantastic free agent signing. His defense has been good. His hitting is as good, if not better, than what anybody could have thought. So, he definitely deserves the starting nod as well. So the right side of the infield to start the All-Star game is all Blue Jays. Another starter, maybe a tiny bit of a surprise, but still very deserving, I think, Teoscar Hernandez. Hernandez has really reinvented himself since he was sent down to AAA fairly early on in 2019. He came back and he's just looked like a completely different hitter since then. So for the rest of 2019, 2020, he won a Silver Slugger Award, and this year he's picked up right off where he left off. So he deserves to be an all-star, and all of those guys are actually going to be all-stars for the first time. So congratulations to all of them. And then a few days after they announced the starters, they announced the reserves, and Bo Bichette was rewarded for a pretty good season that he's having as well. So he's going to the All-Star game. He's going to be one of the reserves, and 4 Blue Jays All-Stars. How exciting. The sky is the limit for this team. I really do believe that. And so anyway, it's getting late and we're almost out of time. So that brings me to Through Blue Jay Color Glasses. So, as I was just finished off talking about Bo Bichette, I'm going to talk about him a little bit more. And like so many things in life, a lot of opinions I find among people on social media and so forth tend to be very extreme. Some people like Bo Bichette so much that they don't want to hear any criticism, even if it's intended as constructive criticism. And then others at the opposite end of the spectrum can be pretty harsh when he makes errors. And let's face it, his defense is a work in progress. So I'm asking you just quickly, when I say who are the best young players under the age of 25 in Major League Baseball today, who do you think of? Well, prior to this year, I'm pretty sure most people thought of Juan Soto, who's 22, Ronald Acuna Jr., 23, Fernando Tatis Jr., 22. And this year, Vladimir Guerrero Jr., also 22, has rightfully added his own name to that conversation. So lots of other good players, Shohei Ohtani for one, but he's a little older. He's 27. I'm talking about the really young guys right now. So what about Bo Bichette? Do you think of him in that group? Because myself, I think that he has the talent to be a part of that group. However, results-wise, while he is already a good major league player, he's a good hitter, I think he has another gear that he has not yet reached. So a lot of you are probably more familiar than I am with Statcast, but I took a look at his Statcast page. And if any of you are like me or like I was a couple of years ago and you're not all that familiar with it, so quick lesson on Statcast. Red, good, blue, bad. So red means that you compare very favorably to other MLB players. Blue, not so much. And most of his Statcast page, they're either pinkish or they're red. So a lot of his hitting numbers really good. I mean, that's why he's an all-star, because he has hit very, very well in his young career, and he hasn't even played what would be a full season's worth of games yet, part of 3 seasons, late call-up in 2019, short season last year, and now we're just in early July this year. So, I mean, he's still young, age-wise, in terms of his MLB experience, so most definitely room to improve. There were 3 things that to me stood out that were blue, that the percentile rank really wasn't that good. And in my observation, the eyeball test, watching Bo Bichette play, none of them were really a surprise to me. So 1, walk rate, 21st percentile. So that, again, the higher the percentile, if you're 90th or 80th percentile, that's really good, because you rank better than that many players in MLB. 21st, not so much. Bichette, he hits for a good average. He hits for power when he connects. Taking walks, not really the strong part of his game, at least not yet. Chase rate, 6th percentile. Yikes. And everybody who has watched this young man knows that he's aggressive. I'm not suggesting that he lose that aggressiveness, not in the slightest. It's a big part of what makes him the good hitter that he is. What I think is that you can temper it just a little bit. Be aggressive in the strike zone. If a pitch is close and you think you can do damage to it, by all means. But man, I have seen him chase pitches that were just nowhere near the strike zone, as that chase rate confirms. You've got the eyeball test, you've got your advanced stats, and when they're both telling you the same thing, there's something going on there. The other thing is the outs above average, 2nd percentile. We've seen him play shortstop. There is room for improvement. Some people don't think that he is a shortstop or that he should be in the long run. I think that he has the capability of being a good, above-average defensive shortstop. I think he has the tools. I just think he needs a little bit better approach. I think he rushes himself at times because he's so anxious to be the best player that he can be, and he ends up being his own worst enemy, fumbling balls that he could easily catch. I remember this one inning that he made an amazing leaping catch on a ball that was probably pretty hard and that a lot of guys probably don't make catches on. And later the same half inning, he booted a more routine ball. I think he has the talent. I think that he should work on it. If there's a really good infield coach that can work with him, I think he has the talent. He definitely has the drive. We've heard him say that he wants to be the best he can be and one of the best players ever. And you know what? Good for him for believing in himself and having those goals. I believe in him too. I think that he can be that good, but he's not there yet. I think that he can and should and will work on his game, and it won't be too long before we see him in that conversation too. We've got Soto with the Washington Nationals, Acuna with Atlanta, and Tatis with the San Diego Padres. Can you imagine Bo Bichette, Vlad Guerrero Jr., both among the best young players in the game, and both of them playing for the Toronto Blue Jays, being the core of this team for however many more years, as well as the other talented players that they've surrounded them with? The future of this team is bright, and it's going to be led by Bo and Vlad. I have no doubts. And on that note, that's all I've got for you today. So let's go Blue Jays. Have a great week, and we'll talk again next week after the All-Star game.